Hello, this is Alexander Cross, criminal defense here in the San Francisco Bay Area. If you'd like to learn more about criminal defense, be sure to subscribe to our channel, Law Offices of Cross and Associates. So we received an interesting inquiry here on our YouTube channel. This has to do with somebody who, let's see, a theft in a shop with a gun. Robbery attorney, Pittsburgh. Criminal attorney, Pittsburgh. Accused of robbery, Pittsburgh. Conspiracy, Pittsburgh. Let's see. My son was a cashier in a store. One day, 3 young men went in to steal with weapons. The manager and my son gave them money. Now, they accuse my son of being complicit because 2 of the assailants were his friends. Well, usually when these robberies take place, there are phone calls and text messages between the co-conspirators. Now, that doesn't happen 100% of the time, but almost 100% of the time. And, if your son had not been around them, if there are no text messages and phone calls to any of their phone numbers yet, there are many text messages and phone calls between all of the other co-conspirators, that would definitely bring a lot of reasonable doubt into the question, especially into the case, especially if these young men were wearing masks. So, because how is he supposed to know? How was your son supposed to know that these people were committing the robbery? The friends that were there, they probably just, used fake voices, or he just didn't recognize their voices because he was stressed out, or maybe the one that wasn't his friend was the one doing all the talking. I mean, there's a lot there to show that maybe he had nothing to do with it. But I think that's going to be one of the biggest points of the investigation. They're going to have to show that there were no text messages and phone calls between him and the other co-conspirators. Because, I mean, let's face it, if you have multiple text messages and phone calls between the other co-conspirators, but your son wasn't in any of those phone calls, that's or text messages, that's off. Because in order for him to be part of the conspiracy, they would really have to coordinate that with him, especially with him. And if there's no text messages and phone calls between him and the other co-conspirators, the DA is going to have difficulty breaking through that reasonable doubt barrier. Now, on the other hand, if there are text messages and phone calls, and they could ping where the phones have been, and they could show they've been together, or calling each other, and texting each other, and whatnot, emailing each other, Snapchatting each other, or whatever, okay, in that situation, we're going to have a problem, a big problem, because we're talking about a violation of Penal Code Section 182, which is a felony for conspiracy, which carries up to 3 years state prison. Plus, there's the robbery charge, which would be a violation of Penal Code Section 211, which carries up to 5 years state prison, plus it's a strike. Then you have the assault weapon enhancement, which would be a violation of Penal Code Section 12022, parentheses A, parentheses 2, which carries an additional 3 years of state prison. So, I mean, all 3 or 4 or 5, whatever the hell guys involved, they're all looking at some very serious prison time for this very serious offense, or actually a combination of serious offenses. But really going to have to look at all these text messages. Ultimately, all the evidence is going to have to be collected, and a determination is going to have to be made on whether or not the DA has enough to convince a jury that your son is guilty, or if they don't. And if they don't, the DA should dismiss the charges. But if the DA feels they have enough, well, then the case is going to have to go to a jury trial, where 12 people for the community are going to have to listen to all the evidence and look at all the evidence, and they're going to have to decide whether or not your son is guilty. Regardless, if you'd like to learn more about criminal defense here in the San Francisco Bay Area, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Law Offices of Cross and Associates. But if you've been accused of a crime and need representation in court here in the San Francisco Bay Area, call us 1-800-862-7677. Once again, 1-800-862-7677. On our next video, we're going to be discussing the case of somebody who had a DUI in State A many years ago and picked up a new DUI in State B. Criminal attorney, Pittsburgh. Robbery attorney, Pittsburgh. Accused of robbery, Pittsburgh.